Hello, and thank you so much for taking the time out to listen. Today, I titled this message, Pharaoh's Modern Day Work Model is Cursed. Pharaoh's modern day work model is cursed. Those of you all who are familiar with the Exodus and what happened with Pharaoh and the Israelites who God called, who God chose to be free out of Pharaoh's dictatorship, you know that his work model was not a good one. And it turned out to be nothing more than a curse. Pharaoh, as well as all of his flying monkeys, those who were going after the Israelites, ended up dying in that story. Now, for many pharaohs nowadays, God, his mercy has really been upon some of them because of the praying mothers, fathers, grandmothers around them. But there comes a point where all that praying for your pharaoh of a leader in the family is going to be nothing more than a stench in God's nose. Pharaoh is wrong. His work model is not conducive to helping anyone out. All his modern day work model is doing is slowly but surely killing people mentally, physically, and spiritually. His work model is one of Satan's grand designs. Some of you all, you need to pay closer attention to these core values that some of these companies have and the mission statements and all of that fluff that many of them use to pull you in. If the core values, mission statement, and whatever else is turning out to not match what they preached, then it's safe to say that that is not a place that you should continue to be at. Not if you are a child of God. Now, worldly people, worldly minded people, they can keep on being under Pharaoh's oppression, suppression. But those who are children of God, God is saying, let my people go. And some of us who see the writing on the wall and we start that process, they don't like us. They want to get us gone quickly. Oh, you're one of them, flying in stealth mode. You're a Moses. Let's get rid of her. Let's get rid of him. Satan, he sees the believer a mile away. And those that cry the loudest about, there's a believer, a lot of times there ends up being some problems. Some problems for them. Because God definitely did not call them to start attacking believers because they don't subscribe to, believe in, and all of that. So it's funny how those individuals end up losing their jobs, getting written up, all sorts of strange stuff happened that never happened before because they became an enemy. They became an enemy. That believer's not doing anything but calling some folks out. That believer's doing nothing more than what God has called that person to do, to get some things done. Many believers are going into establishments as game changers. Okay? And so the last thing we need are those who are trying to stop progress. God's progress. Not flawed man and not flawed woman. So Pharaoh's work model, what does it look like these days? It looks like an organization that pretty much is dwindling down into a skeleton crew. At one point, they needed, let's say, 10 people to do a job effectively, a job that just did well for the collective, brought in much money, but somebody wanted more money. And somebody said, let's see what we can do if we cut the staff by 50%. Now you've got some people that are working like slaves. You've got some individuals who are burning out. There are those who are in a sink or swim position, and many of them sink. Now you got high turnover. Then you bring new people in, and somebody has this idea of, well, let's train them, but train them without the trainer. And so we want to hold them accountable to everything that they watch, that they write, that they're supposed to take care of, to make sure that they're knowledgeable in their position. And so we're going to have our share of alerts and notifications and whatever else. But you still don't have a human trainer. Well, we got rid of him. We got rid of her. We don't need those people. Okay? And so now there's another turnover. And that turnover is a person who cannot handle dealing with all of what is being dumped on them. Sink or swim. Okay? We'll get another one, and we'll get another one, and we'll get another one. The Lord showed me in the spirit that today's employees are not built to last. Okay? So while some of you old school folk who feel like people should be in their jobs for 10, 15, 20 plus years, the business model is not the way it was back in your day. Okay? Get with the times. We do not have people staying in jobs for 20 and 30 and 40 plus years as the norm anymore. I'm not saying that people are not staying in jobs 20 plus years or more, because yes, we do have some. I got some in my family. But that doesn't make them anything special. That doesn't make them more successful than everybody else and all of that. It's just that that particular model that they're working in is not like many of the models that are out here run by a younger generation. Okay? A younger generation that's more interested in making more money for the master and looking good while doing it. So reputation is a big deal. These folks grew up with the internet. These folks got big ideas concerning what one should look like in the face of the public. Whereas the old school model, money and reputation was maybe 0.5 and 6. But integrity, professionalism was high on the top 3 list. You see? And you can fill in the blank with some of those other points. Honesty, feeling valued, right? Appreciated. But nowadays, many of those things are lower on the totem pole. So Pharaoh has this work model that's cursed because God sees how he is using and abusing people to get a little further up the ranks, to blow out the competition. If it takes 10, 15, 20 plus soldiers to go into battle and they all get destroyed, I know I got about 10, 15, 20 plus that are lined up to go into the next battle. Just so long as we're moving toward the goals that we've set, I don't care how many bodies end up dying through this process. And some people have literally died. Died of stress. Died of stress-related health issues that caused them to be 6 feet deep in their graves. Okay? Is it worth it? Some of you all would say, no, it's not. Pharaoh wants you to work with the tools that you have right in front of you. Even though these tools are cheap, even though these tools have Band-Aid fixes on them, he's going to keep telling you, you don't need, you don't have, you don't want. It's a lot of negative going on. And you're supposed to take what you got, use it to the best of your ability. And he's not replacing anything until it is no more. And then Pharaoh's going to come up with, well, do we even need to replace that item? And so now you're expected to work with what's in front of you without the item that was once of service. It may have saved you time. It costs money to replace it. But look at the time savings that that item created for you when it existed. And that's a factor that many of these folks who sign the big checks overlook. Don't want to pay for another person to do a job that some folks are sinking rather than swimming in. And he or she who's signing the big check doesn't want to replace the item that is broken. That is no more. There's a lot of testing that goes on with these individuals too. Let's see what would happen if we got rid of 50% of the workforce at this particular organization. Yeah, let's see what happened. And now your best workers are going somewhere else. And then what Pharaoh does is he makes excuses. Some of you investors, board members who are not in the trenches, Pharaoh's making excuses. He's saying that the workers are not cut out. The workers are not good. The workers are this and the workers are that, rather than telling you the truth. The truth is that his decision was a foolish one, and it cost the company a lot of money. And yes, the talent was there. Yes, the people worked hard, but they couldn't keep up because Pharaoh kept dumping more and more and more because he wanted those numbers to look good so that when those numbers showed up in front of you, board members, you investors, you would be impressed with Pharaoh's work. But for a lot of these people, that's backfiring because the discerning board members, investors, business owners, they can see through that. And they're usually the mature individuals who's been in the business for a long time. Quit making excuses. You made poor decisions, Pharaoh. Get back out there and get my workforce back. You see. So, Pharaoh, he is under a curse right now because he is not meeting the needs of his workers. He's under a curse because he's stubborn. He's cold-hearted. He's under a curse because he's a narcissist. He's self-absorbed, self-centered, conceited, arrogant, prideful, right? He's under a curse because he uses his power, his influence to manipulate people to get his sexual needs met. Come on. Pharaoh's sleeping with this one and that one. That's the truth for some of you all who's observing this thing that's taking place at the workplace. And Pharaoh thinks that he's invincible. He thinks that he's like God, all powerful, all knowing, omniscient. And he's not. And because he's behaving this way, God is taking his business away, taking his position away, selling off his assets. People are stealing his goods. Every time Pharaoh looks up, there's a problem. Pharaoh can't get sleep at night. Don't think for 1 minute that Pharaoh, because he's driving that really nice car and his house sits on a hill, don't think for 1 minute that Pharaoh is looking good, feeling good, and everything is all good in the hood. Because for Pharaoh, that is not accurate. That's not the truth. That's why Pharaoh's always coming up with something to make himself look like he knows what he's doing when he really doesn't. Pharaoh doesn't want to take up time training anyone, teaching anyone. Today's modern day workers are not built, once again, to last. So he is not training his crew to stay, especially if Pharaoh is petty, if he's immature, if he feels like someone could potentially take his job. A lot of negatives are happening in the workforce under a Pharaoh work model. And initially it looks good, right? Going back to those core values and mission statements and all that. All of that looks good initially until you are in that position where you're saying, where is my help? Where are the people who are going to support me, who are going to train me? Where are the folks who are going to show up and fix all of this technology? You brought it in. Now teach us how to use it. You brought it in, but now it's broke, so send your techs out. And Pharaoh goes, well, can't you figure this out? I already got this on my plate. Well, here's some more. I'm not asking you to put more on my plate. I'm asking you to help me with what I already have. And Pharaoh says no. There is an evil among so many individuals who claim that they are about the people, for the people. But the reality is that they are not about the people or for the people, but they are for themselves. And so we've got to trust in the one true God. We've got to believe that God is going to fix this Pharaoh work model that is nothing more than a dictatorship. This Pharaoh work model that's not about uplifting the people. All it's about is bringing in more money and making folk look good. We've got to protect ourselves from those who are scrambling for their position, hoping, wishing, and praying to be back on top again, but they know they've made their share of poor decisions. We're asking that the angels of the Lord encamp all around us and protect us from all harm and danger. We're asking in Jesus' mighty name that Pharaoh will be taught a powerful lesson, in that the violent Pharaohs, the manipulative Pharaohs, well, I'm asking in Jesus' name that the destruction that fell upon the Pharaoh in Exodus will fall upon them. They wanted to create a war. They wanted to have a warlike model. They wanted to treat people like slaves, soldiers, and everything else, knowing full well that people are dying all around them, mentally, physically, and spiritually. And they don't care. I've got the troops, and I'm going to bring in some more troops to replace the troops that died. And then those who can't swim and they sink or they're not cut, we're going to boot them out and we're going to bring some more in. And if they don't like my model, they don't like how I do things, well, they can kiss my blah, blah, blah. And that is how many of them are. And God hears what they're saying to their wives and to, their husbands, and, putting on that tough act and, being that strong arm and, the man and all of that. He hears and he sees. And this is why there is an axe that falls on these folks sooner rather than later. And so I know that this is not the type of message that some of you who lead like that would like to hear, or some of you all who happen to be the favorites under a Pharaoh leadership. But this is truth. And I have a prophetic gifting. And so when the Lord tells me that this is what's ahead for Pharaoh and his minions, his flying monkeys, I'm going to share that. If your husband is a Pharaoh of a leader, he's going to lose his job. If your wife is a Pharaoh of a leader, she's going to lose her business sooner or later. People are not going to continue to take kindly to folks being argumentative, mean-spirited, disrespectful, arrogant, using their position of authority to have sex with whoever they want, whenever they want. God sees, and I'm telling you that as we are continuing to pray, as we're continuing to lift up those who have been victimized under these models, Lord Jesus, we're also seeing that Pharaoh's being exposed and Pharaoh's money, his money's being lost. His reputation is ending up being poor. Thank God for the internet because we can do some research and find out what's really happening with these Pharaoh work models. What's really happening when they so-called are saving money when in fact there's a high turnover. And as I said before, a lot of the, individuals who are in mid-level management, they're coming up with excuses as to why we can't seem to keep anyone and this one's no good and that one, and finding fault with everyone. But those who are discerning and who have been around for quite some time, as I said before, they can see through your excuses. Okay, they can see through it. And sooner or later, as one individual said when she was talking about her personal relationship, he gonna hang himself. And some of these Pharaohs, that's just what's going to happen. Pharaoh is also a Judas that is among you. For some of you all who are still trying to figure out who your Judas is, Pharaoh is a Judas among you. And you can check out that audio if you missed it, as well as video about Judas. Well, I thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to listen. You've been listening to YouTube NM Enterprise 7. Feel free to like, subscribe, comment. We also welcome giving on this channel and thank you in advance. Blessings to you.